Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from JessCrafts.com, and today I'm here with another video featuring the Ranger Rhetoric line. Today I'm going to be using a couple more of the stamp sets as well as the inks from the line and some other products. I thought I tried to do something a little bit more masculine. I think when you first look at this line, you might think that because of the scripty handwriting, it's really great for feminine cards, but I think it can really go either way. And some of the colors in the line really do lend themselves well to masculine cards. So to get started with today's card, I cut a piece, this star die from Umbrella Crafts. It's a wafer thin die, and I cut a piece of masking paper with it. Really, I probably should have just cut a piece of typing paper because I decided ultimately that I didn't really want to put that much mask down just because I was a little bit afraid it might ruin the paper underneath it, and I wanted to use the mask over and over. So I think you should just make a mask with typing paper, but whatever works for you. So I cut that with the wafer thin die, and I am going to recreate a card similar to this one, but I'm going to use a different stamp set. So that was the Thanks stamp set from the Rhetoric line. And today I'll work with the Greetings stamp set. So I'm going to work with this large hello. And I picked the size of my star based off of the size of this large sentiment. I will peel that off and place it such that I know when I put the mask down, it will cover it, but it will still lay straight. If you notice, my masking paper wasn't the same size as my star. My star was bigger, and so I don't have the corners. It's okay because this is already way bigger than my card to begin with, so it works, but that might be another reason you'd want to use typing paper because it comes in a little bit larger of a size. So then I put my MISTI down on it, and I know that it'll stamp in a place where I can cover it with a mask, and it will be centered in, it can be centered in the mask. Put some MISTI magnets down to help hold it, and I'm going to use the Rhetoric coffee stamping ink. There are two different packs of inks in the Rhetoric line, and this is part of the more neutral pack. It has a blue, a brown, a black, and a gray, but I'm going to be using a couple colors from each pack today. And I'm going to stamp this down with my MISTI because it's a large sentiment, but as you can see, it gives a really good impression the first time. So if you don't have a MISTI, you don't really have to worry about that. Archival ink, which is this, these little ink pads, even though they're new, they are the same brand of archival, the same quality ink that you're used to if you've worked with archival inks in the past. Okay, so stamping it twice has given me a great impression. Like I said, you really could only stamp it once, and that would have been fine as well. One of the reasons I wanted to use my MISTI was to work on positioning though. And here, as I lay my mask down, I want to sort of see through it. So I'm going to hold it up to the light in my workspace. So sorry if this is a kind of an odd angle for you guys right now, but I'm trying to hold it up to the light. And that's why typing paper would be great for this too, because you'll be able to see through it. And then I'll turn it over. And since, again, I'm not going to use this as a mask, I'm not going to peel off the backing of the masking tape. I'm going to instead just tape my paper to my mask. And this is why typing paper would work just as well. Now that I have covered my hello, my large sentiment, I'm ready to stamp some of the smaller sentiments. So what's nice about each of these stamp sets is they come with the large greetings and then some smaller greetings that pair up well. So I'm going to probably use hi and hello. Now, of course, you can make bigger sentiments like hello friend is down there, or hi there instead of just hi. And so if you wanted to have a longer sentiment to cover faster, that might be the way to go. So if I snag the hi there, I can put them next to each other, and I'll want to test how that stamps, but I'm going to take the big block from the Ranger Rhetoric line just because it has the grid line, so it helps me to see better if I'm laying things straight, and it helps me to line up the letters straight. I would suggest before you go right to your project to make sure that you like the spacing between hi and there. So you can stamp it off on the corner. I stamped it right there on the corner of my work surface. I think the spacing's great, so I'm going to go for it. But just when you have two stamps that are maybe not, you're combining two sentiments, you'll want to think about the spacing. So now I can just start stamping high there in some various spots around the paper. Things that I'm going to consider as I'm stamping is that I want there to be some variations in the color. I don't want there to be too much blue in one section of the card or too much of the green that I'm going to use later in a different section of the card. And I don't want it to be like a perfect pattern. I don't want to, stamp exactly. So sometimes my H is a little further in, like this one doesn't have the H at all. It just makes it a little bit more random looking. And as I went through the line, at first I thought about just doing like a neutral card. And the blue though stood out to me, which is not quite a neutral color, but it is with the neutral palette. And then I wanted to add a second color for some extra interest. So I went to the other pack of the Letter It line, which included the olive, plum, rose, and French ultramarine. Now you could of course go with the French ultramarine and just do a blue and brown look, which I think would be great too, but I liked the look of the olive. I also considered the plum. The reason I decided not to go with the plum is I just felt like with the red and blue together, especially on this cream background, and this paper that I'm working on is the Letter It Ivory cardstock, I just felt like red, blue, ivory would maybe have a bit of a patriotic feel and look more like a 4th of July type card. So I wasn't quite sure that that's what I was going for. And then I settled on the olive. I'm gonna pull off those old stamps. As you can see, these stamp really, really nicely the first time. Like you don't have to use a stamp positioning tool to get a great impression. And I have literally never used that high there before. Like it's brand new out of the package and stamps that well. So to me, that speaks to the quality of these stamps. Although I did find that they have a little bit of give to them. So if you push them really hard into the paper, you can sometimes get a bit of an outline around them, which is not what I want. I want them to be a little bit more crisp. So I am trying to go a little bit more slow and deliberate and not push too hard as I stamp. Another tip for if you're stamping and you want a great impression but you're not using a stamp positioning tool, because if you can imagine, doing this with a stamp positioning tool would be actually kind of long and frustrating because you'd have to keep either moving your paper around in the tool or keep moving the stamp around. So this is a technique that's perfect for the stamp block over a stamp positioning tool. But another tip would be to stamp on a softer surface because there's a lot, this is a pad of paper underneath me, it actually does provide some give, and to just hold your stamp to the paper for a little bit longer. So don't make too quick of an impression, like, just stamp and go. Give it a bit more time to sink into the paper. So over here in this side, I noticed that I didn't stamp any blue. And I don't think I'm going to like the way that looks if I only have green. I want to have a little bit of blue and green in each corner. So I can just take the high, put it on the other side of the block, and quickly remedy that situation. And then I'll be ready to show you the next step, but I just have to let the inks dry a bit in between, although I'm sure you can already tell what we'll be doing next. So make sure your inks are dry, and then we'll move on to the step that defines the star a bit more. Okay, so to add the definition behind the star, to make it really stand out, I'm going to want to ink up around the star. You could do that step first if that better suits you and then stamp over it, but I kind of like that it dulls out the colors a bit and makes your attention more go towards the center than if they were a little bit brighter. So that's why I'm choosing to do it second, but of course personal choice and preference, and you may want to take one of the other colors. You may want to pull in the green or the blue as your inking color, but I went with the brown, and I have an ink dauber also from Scrapbook.com. They've been having some good specials on their ink daubers recently. Get quite the value pack for a great price, and I like the dauber in this case over the Tim Holtz round blending tool, just because I want something a little bit more precise, but you could use either one. And I'm going to kind of concentrate the ink right at the edge of the star and then let it fade out a bit. Now, these are just dye inks, so they don't blend as well as something like a distress ink or a distress oxide ink, but they do blend. And the key would be to be careful about putting too much ink right to your paper. If you were to take your dauber and just go right to your paper, it's going to create a circle. You're not really wanting that look, you want a more faded look. So you can dab it off to the side to get a little bit less ink. You can start on the masking paper and really pull out, which is another reason why it's so important that your sentiment ink be dry. And the sentiment ink doesn't take a long time to dry. I just briefly put some heat on it with a heat gun, just because I didn't want it to smear. Probably didn't need it. I was probably being overly cautious, but I don't want to ruin my project, especially while filming here for you guys, because then I'd be frustrated and want to start again. So I'm just going to keep blending that out all around the star until when I lift the mask, and I'll just show you briefly what it's beginning to look like. It will look like that on all sides. Once I have the ink spread all over, I remove my mask and I can add a little bit more to my sentiment. So here I decided I wanted to extend the sentiment. So here I had thanks for everything, which wasn't one of the choices, and I could use these Rhetoric metallic markers to add to it. So it has a very slight shine to it down there and is not quite the same as this ink, but I think that that adds a bit of interest. So for the hello, I thought I would add hello and hugs. So I'm just going to write in all capitals. I'm not doing anything too fancy with my writing, but by mixing the scripty look with an all capital look, it kind of mimics what's going on with the all caps here in the sides, but isn't quite as fancy, and adds a little bit of a finishing touch. Then I think I will cut this out with either a stitch rectangle die, or maybe even just leave it like this, because again, I want it to be a masculine, pretty simple card. So that's it for me today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I will leave you links in the video description below to all the products that I used and mentioned today. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Bye.